Grow organic, talk organic. I'm Jay Blaze, your host, and let's get organically blunt. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Organically Blunt. As you know, I'm Jay Blaze, and this evening I have the pleasure and the opportunity to speak with not only an author, a scientist, and an educator, but also a family man who is learning to instill sustainable gardening into future generations. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. So, before I dive into who you exactly are, because I did not say your name, and there's a reason being, I want to introduce you correctly. I want to show everybody here what you do and kind of show them your one of your latest books on top of your latest creation, and I want to dive into it with you here. So,
Okay.
with that being said, I'm going to share the screen and we're going to kind of let you give you a chance to introduce yourself essentially here. So, once I get the screen shared here, if I can figure out, I'm still learning this software, so bear with me here. All right. Here we go. All right. Now I know you guys can't see me, and maybe you can, but I can't see you. As you can see, we have a book here on Amazon. Yes, I brought it up Amazon. It was the quickest thing, but it is Regenerative Soil 101, the science solutions. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Matt Powers, the man behind this creation and all this education that is before you. I definitely want to dive into his book here, and I want to kind of tell you guys a little bit more about what he does and what regenerative soil is. So, with that being said, Matt, could you give us a little information on your background?
Yeah, I went to pretty good schools, but I never thought I would use it. I wanted to be a musician when I was a kid, and I got to do that. And in the midst of that, I met my wife. And in the midst of starting our family, she got cancer. And
Oh,
this is
no.
like 16 years ago, and she lost her thyroid 16 years ago. And we did the radiation, we did everything they said, and it caused other forms of cancer to happen. And it became this constant thing. And so, James, my oldest, will be like, yeah, it's like I thought my mom was going to die like every couple of years, growing up. And it's a hard thing. And the way I dealt with it was I no longer like trusted medical professionals because everything they said contradicted each other. Like I'd be like, when is it safe radioactive after she's radioactive? When is it safe to have the baby around? Right? We have a 1-year-old. And 3 doctors, 3 different answers, everything from a month to 3 months to 9 months. And it's like, that's a big difference. This is a baby. Like, what are you talking about? And we did the Gerson therapy at first, and I couldn't grow enough of the food to juice it. And then we were like using imported food. And so I really wanted to figure this out so that I could do everything like legitimately, right? And we had little kids too, and they're big boys now. But I just got on this mission of trying to grow our own food that was the best food, and I was able to grow food better than anything in the stores. I was able to grow in 140-degree, Fahrenheit soils, and I was able to do some incredible things. And I was still a teacher. I quit the music industry so I could get healthcare. I mean, so many of us, that's the reality. Reality knocks, right? You got a family, you
Yep.
care. Can't keep living the dream, when you got 2 little ones at home. And so it was so hard to let go because I was like there. I was like right there in so many ways. And it's wild though now to like have a 17-year-old who's so much better at me at music. Very humbling. It's like I caught that like football for a second, and like there was like I got to hold the ball for a second before I got tackled, and but it was really so that I could like we could start over and he could take the ball from there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like I was a musician so that I could be the father to my son. You know what I mean? In many ways. And so I was just in this place where I had to change my life to make it better. And when I was a teacher, I was going deeper and deeper into debt because of all the medical stuff. And then the healthcare was more and more until it was $700 a month. It went from free when I began teaching a public school to $700 a month. So all the gains I made in like pay every year, the pay grade going up, didn't matter. They ate through it. And in fact, they ate through it so fast, I was like, I think we're screwed. Like I like realized, like I was like, honey, I think we're screwed. Like I don't know how to get out of this. And so I was like, I'm gonna grow food. And then I was like, yeah, you could do that, but like there's these other bills, right? And I started trying to teach it and create curriculum. And then I took Jeff Lawton's course, and then I wrote a book that was on Kickstarter and made $27,000 in 30 days.
Wow, holy cow.
I know, selling books. And so it just was like, and I was this public school teacher. Everyone was aware of what was going on, and like the district didn't know how to react. And so it was like they banned, one of the things they did was they banned my son from the school. Like they didn't react well, right? And so I quit, and my students encouraged me to quit, and it was like really hard to quit, but I quit, and then I became dedicated to what the community needed, the greater community needed, the permaculture community, the soil community, the regenerative ag, you know what I mean, the gardener community, heirloom seed community. And I just started creating curriculum, just like I would if we were in public school. I created curriculum. And so the school I taught, I had no books. It was all computer based. So I had to create my own curriculum anyway. So I got good at it. So for me, it was this progression that I was like, some of it was like forced upon me, and I had to like rise above like the challenges. But some of it was like just threw in my lap, and I was like, I love heirloom seeds. Let's go. And it was just a joy. But this incredible progression happened, and I became a citizen scientist. I mean, I was an English teacher, you know what I mean? And I just was going deeper and deeper into the curriculum, interviewing scientists and like figuring out like, wow, that's BS. Wow, that's not real. Like people people are adding compost and being like, oh, we need to add compost. And I'm like, yeah, your soil's pH 7.5, right? And that compost, have you pH tested it? And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, pH tested for me, buddy. And then they're like, it's pH 8. And I'm like, oh, I know. You know, and it's like, that's the thing, is it's like, I want people to just like open their eyes, start using put their thinking caps back on, and start engaging in their real. And so my work got better and better. I did the Advanced Permaculture Student Online course based around the Permaculture Student 2. It was the first high school standard-based curriculum ever. And then my longest chapter was the soil chapter. And then I asked people, and this is where everything changed. I was like, aggregating other people's information and doing all these things. But then when I asked people what my next book should be, I said, should it be permaculture gardening? Should it be permaculture for beginners? Or should it be permaculture soil science? And everyone said permaculture soil science. And I was like, oh, I'll just fatten up that chapter. This is not what happened. I figured out like people really wanted me to bridge the gap between chemistry and the biology. So basically at that time, people were thinking Elaine's work and then like John Kent's, but there's way more to the story. And so I was like, yeah, minerals, redox, there's Olivier Roussin, and then there's like James White, rhizophagy, the mycology side, and then there's all the mycorrhizal side, Mike Amaranthus. And so I started gathering all these different voices. And then I went and I got a subscription to Nature, and I printed out because you only get those for like a year. It's like $100. So, when you're on a budget, you know what I mean? You get that for a year. And then you print that thing out, and then you're like, and then you change your payment method so it doesn't like roll over, right? I know how it is. And so like I
Yep.
printed all of it out. I 3-hole punched it. And this was 2018 through 2019, right? And this was before this book came out, and this book was a top new release on Amazon. The next book,
Wow.
Regenerative Soil Microscopy, has been #1 bestseller on Amazon. So it's a progression, but this is where everything changed. So I was selling books, I was doing well with books, but I had no idea there was this other level. And this book went viral. Regenerative Soil, when I finally put it together, I mapped the chemistry out, I mapped the biology, and guess what, folks? It's no mystery. It's called biochemistry. And the things that do it are the biology. So it's not brain science. You know what I mean? You can get it. I just said it, right? And it's just the research. It just never trickled down from the graduate school and the doctoral like levels. And so it's all in the journals still, or in the textbooks that are just like 8 pages of text and there's no pictures. Or if the pictures are there, they're white blocks with letters in them and arrows. And so you have to like imagine what they are. Or the worst ever is where they have the blocks with letters on them. And so you have this like pattern, and it's just blocks with like letters and boxes with letters, and then the key and the legends at the bottom, and it says what they are, and you're going like this. It's the
Wow.
worst. But this is how convoluted our upper level science has become as they become more and more niche, and also just insulated in their own awkwardness and insulated in protecting themselves. I realized when I got into microscopy that there's a reason why like the images that you see in the papers are terrible. They're like rubbing stuff over the lens and then taking the picture. Or like they're like, how can I export this at the lowest bit rate? Like they're making things look so terrible because no one can question you if your images are terrible. My whole thing is I want to make things clear. I want to bring things down to this question of what's most natural. And regenerative soil was an exploration of that. I mapped out all the plant essential nutrient cycles. So we look at the nitrogen cycle, we look at the carbon cycle, all the things that, we standard know, but then we go deeper onto, because I mean, the things that we've mapped out, they're environmental science and they're ag science. So it's leaching and it's contaminants. And so things in between that and other parts of those cycles that we never include because they're natural and they're naturally happening all the time, they're in a different branch of science, and they're like way esoteric and like over here, and they don't get connected to anything because environmental science is crisis based and ag science is like leaching and just enough. And so like their motivations and the way they measure things is off. And so I gathered their charts and their cycle charts and diagrams. And then I went to the graduate school level and the doctoral level, and then everything published, right? And I started mapping out all the pieces so that we could actually have, and then I made it visual so that it's, cartoons, right? It's not cartoonish cartoons. They're just images and diagrams so that they're hyper clear. And that had never been done before. So I wanted to show how soils are maintained, how soils are created. I wanted to cover natural erosion so people understood that like that's also naturally happening. Soil creation's naturally happening all the time. And to understand how we could speed these things up by understanding the actual natural principles at work. By partnering with natural cycles, by partnering with the microbes, getting down to the individual species, individual enzymes and ions, we can supercharge things, we can transform things quickly, and we can unlock nutrition that was, before now unavailable to us. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, it's pretty simple. You guys have heard of mycorrhizal fungi. With this microscope, you can actually see it, right?
Wow.
So our arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi was invisible until my book, Regenerative Soil Microscopy, in this technology. And so that increases your soil, your roots, the surface area of your roots by 10,000 times. And in correlation, it's roughly 10,000 times an increase on average Remember, averages squash the higher level and bring up the lower level. So it's an average. 10,000 times more phosphorus. So when we say, do we have a phosphorus, deficiency or, peak phosphorus, coming? No, actually we have a deficiency and our plants are symbiotic and they partner with fungi, and our vascular mycorrhizal fungi partners with over 90% of plants. So if we just bring that back, phosphorus is no longer a problem. So that's how basic these things are. They're the other half of plants. And then when we talk about endophytes, the microbes that live inside the plants, that's their digestion. They've got a microbiome just like we do. And guess what? There's microbes that are the same microbes in both places. So healthy microbes in the soil, healthy microbes in the plants as endophytes, and healthy microbes in our gut. Where do you think they came from in the first place? Right?
Right.
Right? So,
Yep.
all of this is a loop, and those microbes are literally information feedback between the environment and yourself. When we say eat local because you're in touch with your environment, that's not cheese. We're actually talking science. You know what I mean? And so I've been on this journey to figure out how to live the best life, how to get things so healthy so that my kids, my wife, all of our kids in the community, because I was the local English teacher, I was the head of the English department. So my kids, I still talk to my students who are in their mid-20s, you know what I mean, trying to figure the world out, trying to make money. And this is why I teach all this stuff, and then I teach entrepreneurship too. So I really want to solve these things to pave the way to a new future. And I had to figure it out. And what I realized was no one does the reading, no one does the research, and then no one does the testing. And so, people do testing, right? Those people are like William Padilla Brown, but he's on the other side, like he's in mycology doing mushrooms, not soil. And so he taught me how to do DNA sequencing. And these people are like people that universities and professors fanboy after, right? And they're doing incredible transformative work. He flew down here just to teach me. He's
Wow.
one of my best friends. Yeah, just incredible. But that's the kind of community we are in the mycology community. That's the kind of community we're in the microscopy community. And when we help each other out, when we show each other this is the cutting edge, this is the principles that work, and guess what? This is the stuff that we don't understand yet. And right? Yeah, and that's so critical because that allows us to push the science forward. And I feel like that's the authentic step forward. That's where the science is headed, and that's where we truly find good, better, best in our quest to improve health, because healthy soil is healthy plants and it's healthy people. So I wrote Regenerative Soil. It has all the science, the how, the why, but then it goes into interpretive charts. So it has the poor base charts, the EH, the redox charts. So you actually can see the X, because pH is just the X to the Y, which is the millivolts, which is oxidation, right? And reduction. So I have all those mapped out in there for the first time ever in a published work. So I've got all the nutrients, I've got all the minerals, I've got all the microbes, I've got the actual corrosion rates for minerals. Because people think minerals are just minerals. They don't realize there's forms, right? You could be great pH, but it's too dry and you've locked it out. And so I've got the biology in here, we've got the chemistry, but then I've got the recipes. And then we have the strategies and methods. So you can put it together into an actual plan that goes onto a calendar tied to the seasons. And then there's remediation. So not only are these recipes and tests and how to interpret tests and what to do, there's diagrams for everything. So and yeah, if you guys can
There you go. There you go, guys. You asked,
yeah,
skunk.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's also the microbes down to the individual microbes, what they do. So, like, I've got a chart in here where it's like, oh, okay, well, I've got phosphorus solubilizers, phosphorus mobilizers, bacteria, fungi, and then phosphorus mobilizers, arbuscular, ecto, ericoid mycorrhizae, orchid mycorrhizae, and yeasts. Micronutrients, silicates, zinc solubilizers, iron chelators. We've got plant growth promoting mycorrhizae, plant growth promoting endophytes, pathogen fighting microbes for biocontrol, phytostabilizers for heavy metals and filtration translators. This is the individuals. And then you're like, wait, well, I want that individual. Well, let's, culture that mycorrhizal fungi. That's the recipe and how to do it. That's how the pros do it. And then you're like, well, I really want to do something crazy like bacteria. Okay, here's the bacterial for Azospirillum, Azotobacter, Bacillus megaterium. It's all here. You wanna
Wow.
do rhizobium? Here's a rhizobium prep. Here's how to do liquid culture in jars. You can do it at home in an autoclave. Here's a trichoderma prep. Here's this is ectomycorrhizal prep. So it's all
Wow.
here. And then there's soil remediation. What if you have lead? What if you have arsenic? I was able to put it all in there and then design it so that you can develop your own holistic management plan.
That's impressive. That is impressive.
Well, I've been designing curriculum, and if you don't, for years, and if you don't design the curriculum to lead directly to all right, the curriculum should lead to the assessment. They should be directly linked. If you ever have a teacher who tests you on something you have that they didn't teach, that's the worst possible thing you could ever do. So you always align them. And so when it's an actual action-based thing, it's the inverse. I'm not assessing you, I'm empowering you. And so it should go micro to macro to hands-on action that you can comprehend and develop fluency around. And that's what I've done. I wrote it in 12 months during 2020 during the lockdowns, and it was how I coped.
Hey, I can relate. I created the show out of COVID. I lost my family to COVID, unfortunately. Yeah, that's my story. We won't dig into that, but everybody knows it. And because this is about you tonight, but definitely, that's how this show became. And I like to hear what I call post-pandemic, entrepreneurs. It's people who have created opportunity because there was no opportunity to be had at the time. And you overcame. Look at that. Beautiful.
Thank you.
De- Definitely. And I got some questions I drew up over the
Sweet.
past week I want to dive into with you, kind of just to give everybody from the beginner level kind of a chance to connect a little bit easier, because not everybody is able to understand the jargon or the terminology that you're using. But I've got 8 simple questions off of your book of what I've read so far. I haven't finished it because I'm on the road a lot. So, and to be honest, it's very hard to read a PDF on a phone. And the thing that I haven't found yet is it doesn't go back to where I left off. So I have to remember and I have to scroll all the way back to the spot and say, oh, yeah, I left off there. So it's been a little cumbersome. But other than that, maybe there's a program I don't have, that I don't know about. I do a lot of audiobooks myself, but I've got a lot of author friends as well. And, you guys all do great work and I see how much it is to make it happen. So you're doing great things. And like I said, I want to dive into these 8 questions with you if you don't mind. And I'll start off with the number one. I'm reading off my notes. I don't normally prepare notes, but I came prepared tonight. So here we go. Your book emphasizes the concept of soil as a living ecosystem. Can you elaborate the different types of organisms that contribute to healthy soil and their specific roles? You don't have to touch on a lot, just a couple.
Yeah. So the soil is like every environment where you have like more abundant lower levels of the trophic layer, and then you have at the top of the trophic pyramid of the food pyramid of predation, you have less predators. So you have it's like keystone species, keystone predators, those kinds of things. There's less of them, right? So you're going to have a lot of bacteria. You're going to have as much or less or a little bit more depending on what environment you're in terms of the fungi. And then the bacteria creates glues, and then the fungi creates more structure. It itself is the structure, quite often anchoring things together. The bacteria can ride in it. The bacteria can be inside it. So you can kind of see the difference. There's an order of magnitude difference quite often between them. And so you've got bacteria that's small. You've got fungi that can be small but can range up to very large. And then you have protozoa, and so you have things that are eating the bacteria and the fungi, and they're cycling, that they're making manure. And bacteria just eat and then divide and create more bacteria. Fungi, when they run out of food, they release spores. And then the spores find food and germinate and conditions that are right for them. And so those are the basis, right, of the food for all the above layers. And so protozoa, there are common protozoa that are dangerous, like brain-eating amoeba. They're found in soil, and they're found in water in the tropics, so that people don't snort the water, in tropical
Wow.
situations, right? Because there's brain-eating amoeba, right? Um, the ones that we want are testate amoebae. They've got these shells. They look quite often like their cousins that are in the ocean or in aquatic situations. They're less mobile, and they've got that polite shell that protects them from dry and wet and from hot and cold, to a degree. And so they're the things that's ideal to be cycling nutrition at that level. And above them is nematodes, and those are roundworms, just like the parasitic roundworms that everyone's like, but you have people being like, I love nematodes, I love
I was
them,
just gonna say that. I
right?
love them things, man. They do
Yeah.
amazing.
So the nematodes are roundworms. So we have to remember that oyster mushrooms are a dewormer. So if you have worries about parasites and roundworms and digestion for your animals or yourself, oyster mushrooms literally remove them. Just it
Wow.
destroys. And so if you have the oyster mushroom mycelium or blocks in your compost, it will kill your nematodes. So the nematodes are the upper level cycling of, and then there's there's microarthropods, and they're shredders, and they break things up. They look like very teeny insects. And so we can keep going up all the way to birds and forest animals, depending on, you know what I mean, like all of the layers, right? It keeps going, and it reaches us eventually. But
Right.
but those microbes are the thing that maintain soil, that they conduct soil and unlock soil fertility for plants. And there's a huge overlap between the microbes that are in those situations that are also inside plants and also inside our guts, like E. coli. Everyone's like, pathogenic E. coli. There's only a handful of those, and there's millions of commensal E. coli that are everywhere. So let's not get crazy about E. coli. And then lactic acid bacteria. You love kombucha. We all love kombucha. That's what we're talking about. And then, yeast. Um, Yeasts are the reason we made wine. Was yeast was already inside the grapes, inside the vine, and on the surface too. So these things were all going to happen because the microbes were implicit, and the microbes were originally partnering with these plants from the beginning of their evolution. So we're really bringing back evolutionary partnerships. So the ecosystem that's in our gut, people have in the past 10 years been talking about the microbiome of the gut. We need to bring back the gut biome. They have one too. And so the soil ecosystem really is just the microbiome of the earth. And we need to restore that because the practices and the chemicals and the pollution and the things that have happened have killed it in a large way.
Definitely. You kind of mentioned, killing off the biology and the chance to harvest uh soil life here on earth. You said there's left less than 50 harvests left, and when you look at that, that's not a lot. When you think of how many years we've came to how many years we've got left, we got to maintain a healthy environment and soil, and we got to instill this in our younger generations because I feel a lot of schools aren't educating on this type of stuff because kids are more into the technology, and we got to break them off that and get them to where they can get their hands dirty again. You can use that technology, but I feel hands on. You can't beat that. Hands down. That is one of the best ways for them to learn, and we got to continue to educate that way. And I feel your book gives a lot of information that I haven't even got a chance to dive into, but I do want to dive into the second question. I hate to steamroll here. I just don't want to keep you for longer than an hour. And I know you got a family to get back to. So, and we got a lot of good information here. So, with that being said, my second question is many people might be surprised to learn that even seemingly healthy soil can be depleted. What are some signs that soil is declining, and how can listeners identify these signs in their own gardens or yards?
Yeah. You might have certain plants do really well and certain other plants do poorly. And you might be asking yourself, what's going on here? My soil looks great. Um, and you're so confused. And guess what? I've had so many students over the years that I've hit these outer cases, and they're the outliers. They're the ones who are like, hey, Matt, yeah, I like your advice. I like all the things you're saying. You know what I mean? And this is early on in my teaching. They were like, I have soil that's like 5.5. And so, adding EM, which is 3.5, is kind of like, I think, unlocking the aluminum. And I'm like, so why is your soil 5.5? And I'm like looking up their area. And I'm like, because it's all aluminum. And they're in Australia, right? And so it's like seeing those different perspectives really allowed me to see around all the limitations and expectations that have been built around. I mean, in permaculture, so many people's books assume that their climate is everyone's climate. And so I really wanted to create something that was versatile, that would be able to, that people would be able to see themselves and make choices around the options. Definitely. I don't know if I answered the question. Maybe ask that again.
Well, basically, I just kind of wanted to give the audience a way to tell if their soil is declining and if there was any telltale signs to show, something they might see or notice to realize, hey,
you're always going to see it in the plants. They're going to tell you. But in testing, we can tell that there's good, better, best, and we can tell specifically what's wrong. And yes, soluble testing of nutrients and minerals is limited. Doing, plant sap analysis, plant tissue analysis, all of them are going to get different bandwidths of a holistic picture that we're trying to recreate. But the plants are going to show deficiencies. The plants are going to show us issues with their soil. They're going to get attacked by bugs. They're going to have fungal issues. They're going to show us through they're going to vocalize, right, through having a problem, that there's a problem. And you may get in the good, better, best territory where you
Yep. I think he lost him. Sorry, guys. Think he hit
your
turbulent.
soil.
There
And
we
so you're
go.
like, available in my soil.
Oop,
Okay.
he keeps
I'm,
cutting out here. You keep
oh,
cutting out. Yeah.
okay. All right.
Sorry
Right.
about that. No, you're good. You're good. I just wanted to let you know. I didn't mean to cut you off. Your mic
Okay.
was like cut in and out twice there. So I don't know if
It might be the internet. Yeah.
yeah, it might be, and I apologize for that. But
Oh,
definitely, the
but
we didn't
testing.
mean to.
If we don't test, we don't see. And so it's really hard. I mean, especially because some things are micronutrients and trace nutrients, and then they make like that smell. They make it that like flavor profile pop. And so when you really want to go to that next level, we really have to like step into that fine tuning, which is what my book really offers. It offers like a way to like see those higher levels, and interpret them, but also do something about it.
Definitely. So, for people at home that might be starting their own soil, do you have basically any key practices they should start out with?
Yeah, I would say that the first thing to take on is to understand that if you're growing inside and you've been growing with a substrate, a medium, to let's take a few steps back and just check out my book, Regenerative Soil, or talk to someone who's read it or trained in it and hear them out, because soil is all silicates. When you look at it under the microscope, sand looks like glass. Same thing with silt and clay. And they're just different sizes of silicates with different minerals in them, no doubt. Not very different, but they're silicates, right? And so they conduct light. They behave very differently than organic matter. And if it's all organic matter, like a peat, thing that you're doing, or a quar thing that you're doing, those things have a very particular pH, EH bent to them. So you're always kind of competing against that. But I would say this whole concept of like, oh, we just need compost. Oh, we just need this. You need soil. And whether it's your native soil that you're mixing in with something that's heavily organic, like matter, and so you've got great organic matter levels, and then you develop the soil and you reuse the soil, like that's super cool. Korean natural farming expert, or natural farming expert, depending on how you want to say it, Chris Trump does a permanent bed system, and he uses IMO. He uses native soil. He uses native subsoil. You can even get equivalents of those things from like a local construction area, or those just providers of fill soil. And so he's got like a whole system. I don't want to like reteach his thing, because I know that like he was like, no one's allowed to film this when we did it. But my point is that you can create living soil mediums that you don't ever need to change. And a lot of people, especially in cannabis, dump their soil,
Oh yeah.
and it's because of what you grew. You grew in a peat, or a quar, kind of like hurly burly thing. And so like if you're in a stable, grounded, cyclical situation with soil, it's real soil now. You have aspects to it that you do once. Imagine like you got 10 plants and they're potted and you do mycorrhizal fungi. And you may be like, okay, great. Now I'm going to get new soil, right? Okay, maybe for you, that's not much of an economic loss. I would say it is still for you, but take that up 100x or 1000x. If you have to replace, 10,000 pots of soil versus you inoculate once and you always have that inoculant in that pot forever, like financially, it's a no-brainer. Like on
Right.
paper, everyone choose to like keep the soil and just like there's the physical labor goes away. You're like, oh, we just redo it. You know what I mean? And it's like we have to really embrace that reality that people are already doing this. And it's recognizing the principles that are in that book, because the principles that are in that book simply are highlighting the actual principles that are out in nature. So people have been doing this for 50 years. People that are gurus and everything read the book and go, huh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And then they can see other people perfectly who are doing it differently. And that's the most important thing, is to be able to really have clarity in this space, to be able to see each other and to recognize why we're successful in what we're doing, seeing why Chris Trump is successful, but also seeing like the bandwidth and the caveats of all, methods and practices, because different strokes for different folks and different things work different in different areas.
Definitely, definitely. I haven't talked to Chris in a while. Matter of fact, we talked during the pandemic, and he was like, "I think I might be a little too harsh for your show because of the way he talks." And I was like, "No, dude." I was like, "I think we'll get along perfectly fine." I said, "You'll be all right." And he was like, "Okay, I don't want to offend nobody." I was like, "You ain't gonna offend nobody over here. I promise you on that."
Sweet guy.
But
He's such a sweet guy. And the funny thing is he like doesn't want to say things. He's like, Matt, the recipe I created for IPMO, I proved it. It works everywhere. It's perfect. You just have to do the recipe. Meanwhile, my pictures of me being like inspired by Chris Trump, I'm making compost this way. And there's like all this like hyphae all over these like a pile of June bugs in it. And he's like, I don't know what you're doing, Matt. But no. I love Chris.
uh,
But that's the
yeah,
thing
he's
is
a great guy.
I want to understand, for me, I'm a meddler. I want to understand why. And so I'm
Yep.
going to go create a natural process to observe things in a way. Okay, so what I did for that compost with the June bugs, I got June bugs like battering at the window outside the studio at night. And so I set up a light, and then they fall into this bucket. And then
Okay.
I put them to the compost tea, and they drown. And then I'm like and I usually don't brew compost tea, but I started doing this thing where I basically soften like kelp and fish emulsion by combining with EM and then like aerating it. And then the June bugs go in it and they die. And so then when I'm done with that, it's just like full of like the leftover stuff and then all those June bugs that were floating on top. And I dumped those on top of the compost and it all went fungal. And so
Okay.
like that is digesting the chitin. That's chitinase, right? So that's like
Yep.
insect pest management. But I know I'm a meddler. But that's the whole thing. It's like I really want to understand why, and so that we all can like do our own versions and like keep the science going. And anyway, Chris does too. He invented IPMO recently. You know what I mean? He's doing the same thing. But he is rocking it, and his IPMO recipe is like a well-oiled machine, and it's working everywhere, all over the world to help people. So I just always want to put that out there. But yeah, no, what I do is I go down, and Chris Trump is in the book. I should say that. Chris has been a longtime friend, and he just like shares and he so that's why there's all this Korean natural farming stuff in all my books, because of Chris. And so
Definitely. That's awesome.
You can like see, you know, his crazy beard. You get a crazy beard
Oh
with him.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
He did. He's all cleaned up now, but I got the yeah, him making FPJ. Yeah,
Oh
so
wow.
so yeah, no, I definitely like want to honor, all the people, all the work, all the people who taught, us, you know what I mean? I was originally a mentor 10 years ago, taught one-on-one by Elaine Ingham, Chris Trump, learned from Master Cho and Elaine Ingham, but we're all still furthering the science. We're all pushing it forward. And yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just starting to dive in, I got an autoimmune disease called alopecia, and um I wanted to go fully organic. And the reason I got into regenerative soil was all my grow shops locally closed down and I couldn't get soil. I kept throwing it away like you said. And I'm like,
Mm,
"Well, what am I going to do?" And my best friend is a registered geologist and a professor as well, and he was like, "Dude, I'm starting a soil company," and this was a while back. He's been in the soil business for a while, but he's
nice.
like, "Come up and get some and give it a try, and I'll teach you how to re-amend." And we put it on the show, and I've been doing it ever since. And then I got into bed, you know, and I lasagnaed my beds out, and I did everything organic, and I haven't turned back since. So like now I run automated blue mat systems for watering, but yeah, it's fun. And I I don't know where I found you in the algorithm of Instagram, but I know what picture it was. I just would have to go back and look. You had your book, and it was you and another gentleman. I didn't look too close. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I seen the book, and I'm like, I have a thing for books. I'm a book nerd. And as much as I can't read them as much as I would like, I collect them. And I collect the knowledge because then I can go and as I need something, it's right there. And I liked how you wrote that in the beginning of your book was, you can read it this way, front to back, or you can read it this way and jump around, or you can read it this way. And I'm like, this is my kind of author. Like he realizes, you can go any way and you're still going to get the education that you came to get, and you delivered on the package. You really did. And keep up the great work there, definitely, and I'm gonna definitely link it up in the show notes. But I kind of want to dive into, you know, the cannabis side of things and the personal side of things with you. It's something we kind of do on this show all the time. And if you're not a cannabis user now, we respect that, but I'm sure you've at least tried it once. And that's usually the number one question we typically ask is, how old were you when you first tried it and where did you get it from?
Well, I can't say the name of the person because
Sure.
he's got a life and a family, and but it was someone really close to me, someone who I looked up to, and I was 15, maybe 14, 15, and I was really struggling in my life at the time, and I was having like trouble like making friends and articulating myself and even being close to this person. And so they just sat me down and insisted, and I'm really lucky that I sort of went along with it because I was scared. I was just like, and so yeah, yeah. No, the thing that I wrote a book called Unstoppable Enthusiasm, and I talk
Okay.
about in there how, yeah, I wrote that. And I talk about in there how, medical marijuana has been like a really important aspect of healing for me and healing for my family. Um, my wife had a growth in her jaw that was destroying the roots of her teeth, and they were going to biopsy it to see if it was cancer. And I was like, how do you know if it's cancer or not? Like, we have to test, we have to biopsy it to know for official. And I'm like, okay. what are the options and what are the behaviors? And they're like, well, it could be this, it could be that. If it's cancer, then it's going to destroy the roots. If it's not, it'll push them out of the way. And I'm like, is it destroying the roots? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, this is why we want to biopsy. I'm like, what? You want to unlock it? You want to like open the thing and spread it? And
Right.
so, right. And so I, of course, in my infinite wisdom, was like, honey, you have to get positive right now and do the Joe Dispenza meditation. You need to do, and like, that was like the wrong thing to do. It was like waiting, not get invited back to the next meeting with the doctor, right? So I realized, I could not pour fear onto her. I had to resonate with like unstoppable enthusiasm and be really supportive and like let all that go so that she could let go. And then I also like developed a plan. And when the doctor was like there and they're like closing, finishing up the conversation, and I was there, I was like, hey, I've got an idea. And I like started just talking really fast. And the doctor was excited and my wife was annoyed. But she did agree to try my idea out because the doctor said that's not a bad idea. It's worth a try. And so redox, we talk about soil redox. What happens when you do riding up and down the electrical side of things to something that requires a certain frequency of like cancer requires a certain frequency, right? That's a certain millivolt. So I was doing Rick Simpson oil and then oxygen liniment, and we were in Washington, state, and so we were going up and down and using DMSO to deliver it, because DMSO goes through skin and muscle. So it was there. It's porous. It's your face. So I reasoned we could do that, and we could reach it with those things. And so we went back and forth and back and forth. There was the size of a jawbreaker, like a gumball, and good jawbreaker, and then it shrunk to the size of a pea in 2 months doing this protocol. And so the guy who was going to biopsy it was like, I don't want to do that. It's small now. It's obviously healing. Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. Which was a miracle that he said that too, because I wasn't there. Remember, I wasn't invited. So yeah, it was an absolute miracle. And cannabis was central to that. And I have Crohn's, and so at different time periods, at different flare-ups, and also different sicknesses, medical marijuana in the past. I lived in California 12 years. We lived in Washington State. It really helped me and gave me the ability to pivot and heal and get out of situations that other medicines didn't have any power to do. And that's the thing that's so crazy about it, is it's like a medicine that there's no other equivalent to it. I think that's the most important thing to realize, is that I know there's all this recreational stuff, and I support recreational 100%. But the medical side, when that was happening, when recreational arrived, we all worried that the emphasis was going to shift, and the miracle of what cannabis can do for health was going to be left behind. So I kind of have like a position, right? That like
Definitely.
people don't recognize how important and powerful a medicine it really is, and how important it needs to be in the hands of the people, not in corporations, not in medical, not in federal. No to all of that. It should be totally decentralized. It should be totally open. And because the people who created it to what it is now, the reason that it's medicinal is those people who were pioneers, those people who risked it all. And some of those people, died in jail for us to have
Definitely.
this. For like, I'm getting chills right now. It's like out of like respect. Like we have to protect it so that it doesn't go to those people, because those people are going to abuse it and denigrate it, and suddenly, 5 years into, like, the pharmaceutical companies like having control of marijuana, it'll no longer be medicinal, magically no longer medicinal, right?
Definitely.
And so we're the ones who made it medicine, so it needs to stay in our control and in our hands. Mom and pop people, real people, authentic people, people who care, people who want it to be the highest quality medicine, and not, corporate profit. So, like, that's really how I stand on it. I've met people who have had lung cancer, who have had, tumors like come out of their body because they've been doing poultices of Rick Simpson oil on it. I mean, it's a miracle, and not only that, I mean, it's part of our bodies. Like, we have this endocannabinoid system. It's just, I just think it's a human right that it should be allowed everywhere.
I agree. Definitely. I've got friends that are going through cancer treatment right now, and they just got to go to the Bahamas because she was healthy enough to finally be able to travel. And it's like, you
Yeah.
guys deserve that. Go take some time for yourself, and he runs a CBD store company here in West Michigan, and
Yeah.
he came upon me. Oh, we've been friends for years, and he was originally from Cape Cod, and he um he reached out to me for some RSO, and we delivered on the point for him overnight. I got to shout out Frozen Extracts once again. You're a miracle, bud, and we got her cancer to diminish a lot, and it was excellent, and I've
Good.
seen it firsthand, and that puts me into my final question with you. This is the famous organically blunt question, but there's a rule to it, and the rule is you got to give me your first organic thought. You cannot think hard. I want the first thing that pops in your head. So, with that being said, here it goes. If you could smoke with anybody dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Hmm. That's a hard one. Um, I guess it would be Philip K. Dick,
Okay,
because the conversation would be so wild. And he died 3 weeks before I was born, and he's my favorite author.
that's amazing.
I may have revealed too much psychologically in this moment, but yeah, I read everything he wrote when I was like 23, and now I'm rereading everything with my sons, and it's just wild. He predicted drone warfare. He predicted AI supercomputers. He predicted um, androids. Like, he predicted. I mean, the Truman Show is him. Total Recall, Minority Report, Screamers, Scanner Darkly, The Man in the High Castle, Blade Runner, of course. Like, he is modern science fiction, and he died, and they basically used his stuff after he died. And so he's just someone who's always, I don't know, he's a huge influence in my life. Um, and yeah, no, I think that would just be interesting. I would love to talk to him. My belief is that, like, I feel like I can talk to just about anyone I want. I meditate, and I study, and I feel like I can understand people's minds and understand what people would say. And so I feel like, if I study them enough and have enough of their work, um, I can basically, like, predict what they would say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I got to talk a little bit about what's coming up this weekend. Let the audience know, before we let you go, you're more than welcome to hang out while I talk a little bit about what we got coming up here. But this weekend, you guys are going to see me. I'm going to do as much live content as I can, some interviewing. My friend Chris at Country Roots is putting on an event called Foraging at the Farm. And we're going to be doing everything from educational panels on down, from regenerative soil to how to do stuff in your garden and so much more. I got the flyers up on Instagram. You're going to be able to find me out there. And next week, I have a special guest coming in from the Netherlands. Terpe's Mutant Genetics is going to come on and talk about how he creates mutant genetics that, such as duckfoot and fern style cannabis strains and much more. So it's going to be some very interesting conversations. We're also going to have a good friend coming up, hopefully here on the show. A lot of you guys know about him in the industry as Tommy Trichomes. You can check him out on Instagram. He is a great friend of our show, and I want to hear about his, Jadam and different type growing and how he's putting that to work in his garden to make it work successfully over where he's at. So we got a lot of good stuff coming. With that being said, Matt, I appreciate your knowledge. I appreciate you coming on the Organically Blunt show. If you have anything else going on, don't hesitate to hit me up and say, hey, I need to get the word out on this. We'll put you back on the show, no problem, and we'll get it taken care of. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you get back to your family and you guys enjoy your evening. Regenerative Soil on Amazon, and we'll also put your website down there. I'll get all that information once again to verify that we have it correct from you after the show here, and I'll make sure we get it in the show notes so people know where to find you. With that being said, could you shout out your Instagram so everybody can give you a follow, and maybe your website so they know where to find the book at?
Heck yeah. So I'm the permaculture student. And if you go to regenerativesoilscience.com, you'll find everything. I've actually got a course, a 20-week online course that pairs with this, and it starts in 2 weeks. So if you want to deep dive with me for 5 months of education as part of a community with over 600 people from all over the world who are doing this, hop in. regenerativesoilscience.com. I'll see you there. The books are there. The courses are there. All of it's there. I hope that you dive deep and take that next level, because regenerative soil is possible for everyone.
Definitely. With that being said, have a great evening and enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for coming on to Organically Blunt. And as always, everybody, stay organically blunt. As we close this chapter of Organically Blunt, immense gratitude to our exceptional partners who fuel our growth journey. Seedsman Genetics, the seasoned seed bank with over 2 decades of experience. Grow Bag, your trusted storage solution to protect terps. Gorilla Grow Tent, crafting spaces for cultivating dreams. Kind LEDs, illuminating your green haven. Country Roots Soil and Amendments, nurturing roots for success. Atlas Seeds, a source of pure genetic treasures. Green Wolf Genetics, creators of botanic magic. Smoke and Stork Genetics, where passion meets potency. Humboldt Seed Company, committed to cultivating excellence. Extreme Gardening, elevating your gardening game. Rain Science Grow Bags, redefining plants' homes. 420 Fast Buds, pioneers of fast and furious growth. Captain Redbeard Seeds, sailing the seas of genetic innovation. Aero Mixer, the rheumatic heartbeat of your grow. Petra Tools, your trusted garden companions. SoFem Genetics, sowing seeds of FEMS and Build-A-Soil, building the foundation of your organic oasis. Lost Close Plant Therapy, healing and enhancing plant vitality. Unlock these exclusive deals with coupon code Organically Blunt at checkout. Until our next episode, stay connected and keep growing, and as always, stay organically blunt.